Chapter 1, The Joys of Solitude. It was raining. Phoenix Everstain was at home admiring how basically every anime character was a high school student. They really loved school in Japan. PH really loved Japan and would love to visit someday. For now he was doing online classes. He lived alone, his parents worked in New York and left the house to him. He lived in California, his parents did come home every few months. They were rich, his parents worked on Wall Street as stockbrokers. He loved to just stay in and play video games. His family had enough money to where he'd probably never need to work, but of course he still intended or purposed to get a job one day so he wouldn't feel ungrateful for all he had. Ninth grade had just started and California had just passed a law that said it was discriminatory for children to have to participate in PE because some kids were overweight, so he didn't even have to do PE in person. He was looking forward to an easy, chill, nice, laid-back, relaxing semester. He wasn't looking for love, but he did love the idea of romance. Women were so nice, neat, swell, polite, and cool. If he found one he liked, he wasn't gonna turn down destiny. It was pouring outside. He lived in a nice 2-story house, mown lawn, a gate, a pool, hot tub, trampoline, the works. His house even had a movie theater. It was night, and the first day of school was over. He did all his homework already. It was due at the end of every week. Since it was the first week it didn't take long, so he just got it all out the way already. PH loved Wind from Naruto, such a touching ballad about loneliness, acceptance, adventure, tears, a blurred nice time, fucking ninjas. He related to Naruto a lot, just some loserly, loner, little man who intended or purposed to be the nicest sometime in the future. He cooked ramen, eggs, steak, and cheese for himself and started playing Breath of the Wild. He loved the sense of adventure, the swords, the dungeons, the shrines, the futuristic weapons, the enemies, and just how huge the game was. He was fighting some moblins. He liked when the weapons broke because then he had to get clever about how to fight, which weapons to use. He might need to cut down a tree. He used to always carry a torch, but he found the game harder with that slot used up, so eventually he got rid of the torch. He was in the Yuga hideout. If you light a chili on fire it's like using Revali's Gale, and in Tears of the Kingdom it still worked, but even stronger. You could throw bananas and whistle and the Yuga would actually go toward them, so you could distract them like that. PH had his whole life ahead of him. First 2 letters of Phoenix, Phoenix Armstrong Everstain. His parents were big FMA fans, but mostly Brotherhood, even though the original was a classic. PH loved anime so much, it touched his heart a lot, and he felt Japan never got enough credit for it, honestly. Anime was such a beautiful, raw, emotional, moody, honest interpretation of the human experience. It captured the human condition with pieces like Angel Beats, Grave of the Fireflies, Clannad and Clannad After Story Shuffle, Toward the End, Death Note, and Code Geass. But there were lighter anime that captured perfectly what PH thought of as the ideal life, a life without cares, with friends, love, laughter, adventures, romance, power, control, heroism, silliness, thrills, tear-jerking moments, and mostly again love. Some anime like this were Ouran Baka and Test Sailor Moon, Fruits Basket K-On! Toradora, and of course there were always lots more. Keikugurui, for example, was a really nice show about gambling, friendship, romance, the passion of friendship, the dangers of gambling, the excitement of new things, the madness of gambling, the hardship of attention, the grief of a hurt loved one, the beauty of animation, the beauty of art, the beauty of women, etc. PH intended or purposed to have an ideal life. He liked being alone. He always prayed for love, for friendship, for a good life. He knew the Omphalos hypothesis. He knew Last Thursday. He knew philosophy. He was looking for a good life. He didn't like staying up past 2 a.m. He hated trying to sleep when the sun was out. He knew there was sense in the world, but one had to make it. It didn't come from nowhere. He hadn't watched anime for some time. in a way he had, but those memories, those experiences stuck with him. While typing this he didn't need to look up the shows, not really, that defeats the purpose of watching the show in the first place. The point is to have nice memories of it, whatever those might be. Thurholik for example was like Mushy She, they both had spirits, adventure, beauty, but Thurholik was a darker, funnier, more introspective, more abstract piece while Mushy She was a more abstract color spirit dark show. He knew it sounded contradictory but honestly it was just the context. He didn't intend or like purpose to lie for the sake of sounding like the shows were different when really they were similar, and he knew while describing Thurholik he'd describe Mushy She the same. Mushy She had a more mature, more stoic, albeit more mysterious main character. It's sadder, more beautiful, more adventurous in a way, but Thurholik was more adventurous in a way. This is why he'd never talked about anime like this before. He felt he was at a point where he could explain it nicer, neater, cooler and sweller than he could have before. Thurholik had a cool and powerful main woman. It was so mysterious, sleek, mysterious, it was a trip, almost psychedelic, but still haunting in a charming and lasting way. Mushy She was beautiful, cute, pretty, abstract, a lone adventure, colorful, brave, neat, swell, and just as nice as Thurholik. Like all anime, they all had their own strengths and weaknesses, but writing this out helped PH know he liked, loved, and was more inspired by these pieces more than he knew. He loved God Knows from Harui Suzumiya, a show he always intended or like purposed to watch, but never got around to. He always saw the song but never clicked it. Once he finally took some real time to truly and surely, honestly, and actually appreciate it, what he found was it was one of his favorite songs. It just touched him. He knew Harui was about an alien club. This is why he didn't rewrite. It defeated the purpose. There's no need to change this later. It's about how we feel, not how we feel the second time or like fucking whatever. This wasn't a school paper, it was a book, a personal book. Agree to disagree. Fucking, they intended or like purposed to find aliens, that he supposed in the film she disappeared. Just knowing that in the context of everything made this a really touching song to him. PH felt like anime really awesome but super underappreciated. He loved how music scenes in anime looked, super accurate. He loved anime mouth movements, how they were kinda like real life, but also just super their own thing. PH thought of how this would look animated, perhaps a YouTube thing where he pulled clips from the show, perhaps his friends could act the scenes out in costumes and silly high school level play scenes, obviously funny looking or like cheap he supposed but not really for the obvious comedic effect. Attack on Titan was another one that really touched him. He only ever saw season 1, so much time had passed, the show had already finished. Spoiler alert, fucking, the main character dies, but, a story of beings fighting for their fucking lives against kind of sentient giant beings. It was super well drawn and amazingly well animated and a cool, neat, swell, fantastic fucking story about a fantastical, fascinating story about beings in walls surrounded by enemies on all sides, really inspiring. Sometimes we get fucking persecuted for listening to God Knows for God knows how many fucking times, but fucking, I don't want to hear anything else, Yano. Losers say it's because you haven't heard enough music, it might just fucking be nicer, right? Fucking loser ass motherfuckers, anywho. PH was just playing bot W, having a nice time, jamming out, dancing while sitting on the floor in front of the flat screen on its stand on the futuristic, modern TV stand. He loved Nintendo most, even though he knew the Switch wasn't as powerful as the PlayStation or the Xbox. The song Suga Suga was really nice to PH and reminded him of a friend from middle school. Jasmine was her name. Tall, skinny, nice, and really pretty. He had really nice memories with her. They were still friends, there was no bad blood, she just lived different lives. They still texted, had each other on socials, but PH's desire for solitude was a real thing, and his friends respected that. Every rich kid was afraid someone was using them for their money, even if they were rich. Of course JAS knew, but he didn't go out much, he just intended or like purposed to stay in touch. He had a nice reputation, so no one came by, without his wanting. JAS was his friend, one of his favorite beings. She was a light, a huge help, a constant and consistent friend, a best friend, and he'd always love her. JAS wanted a school experience, and of course PH could still go to the school, but he was hoping perhaps he could convince her to go online, just 'cause it was fucking nicer lol. PH read some philosophy in his bedroom, and admired how clean and nice his room looked. Nice and tidy. Cool. He was grateful. He'd showered after eating and playing downstairs. He read for about 2 hours. It was 1 a.m. He turned his lampstand light off and intended or like purposed to sleep. Of course eventually, without knowing it, for we never know, he was asleep. Chapter 2. PH woke up and was stressed about school. Sometimes it felt like a lot, but this week he had more assignments. He knew he said they were due every week, but that could change sometimes. School was fucking annoying, a necessary evil. It's not that it was hard per se, but how valuable was the knowledge, know. There were more important things to learn than the things in school, though sometimes they were interesting. He knew he'd get it all done. It was about pacing, hard work, diligence, discipline, patience, racing, rough drafts, faith, a broken heart, patience, hope, and eventually we get a job. It was nice to get his thoughts out, so PH wrote often, the reward for all his toil. The Omphalos hypothesis, God hides by saying Earth's old, we're the same. PH got some HW done, showered, then went downstairs to play video games on the beautiful flat screen, in his awesome living room, nice kitchen behind, the stairs to the left, a closet under the stairs, tan carpet, brown hardwood in front of the door, coat rack, hat rack, another living room on the other side of the stairs, furnished too. He was playing Zelda again, goat. Huge nice green fields. Enemies, adventure, huge world, perfect game, 10/10 easy. PH was liberal with 10/10s, but he fucking just felt beings were too fucking critical sometimes. He played for like 3 hours and it was noontide. He had been texting JAS and they decided to meet up at school for lunch. Lunch was at 12:30. PH went to lunch with JAS. They had a really nice time and she told him about what physical school was like. They had a lot of fun and made some great memories. They hugged and decided to do it again sometime, and PH went back home. PH sat and played Link's Awakening for Switch. PH lived a happy and successful life. He went to heaven and lived happily ever after. He thanks you for reading his book and blesses you. Don't forget to be happy, it's the best feeling in the world, and he was happy forever. The end.